Okay, I wanted to do this video. Been going through a bit of research recently. Ran across a book, very, very interesting book. This book right here, what is it? Is it showing? From Crete to Egypt, Missing Links to the Rig Veda by Dr. Liny Srinivasan. Honestly, one of the best books that I've read in a while. Um, it goes into some interesting implications. It speaks about a different method of kind of getting into some of this stuff. Um, the title of this video is Medjay, Phoenicians and Myceaneans, because of some of the things that some of this literature actually implies. Some of this implies. So basically, what this book is talking about is reworking the whole time frame as far as your whole Vedic period of time, your whole Vedic, because a lot of times when we deal with um let's say stories from the Vedas like your Ramayana, your Mahabharata and everything like that, the dates of these things are uncertain, or traditional scholars and people like that, and I'm not trying to disrespect nobody's beliefs or none. I'm just expressing what this author's saying, and it's implying some quite interesting things. But the dates are often put 20,000, 30,000 years ago, some uncertain time, whatever. The where this author actually places the dates of what goes on in the Vedas, she places like what she's talking about. She's talking about Rama from the Ramayana is Ramesses. She's talking about the golden dynasty of your Vedic period. The first dynasty of the Bharat, as they call it, is Bharat meaning India. The first dynasty of India or whatever, the golden dynasty, Ishvaku, if I'm saying it right. That's the Hyksos dynasty, or the 15th dynasty. You see what I'm saying? It's a lot of implications in this stuff that she kind of goes into. One of the things that could be implied, and I know some of the people who are big on Kemetic history might go back and forth about this one. I know Bobby Hemmett said it a long time ago that the Hyksos are not foreign rulers. Though they're often equated with foreign rulers because they use the term Khasut. But as the author goes into this material, if you look more to like place names, Khasut is a city in the Delta. It's called Xois, Xois in Greek. That's what the Greeks called it. But Khasut is a place smack dab in the middle of the Delta, built at least 3000 BC. So it's an older thing. So if they're Khasut or kings of Khasut, that wouldn't make them foreign rulers, but that would make them more so rulers of the farthest stretches of the empire. It also, if you go into, let's say like Herodotus, he talks about Phoenicians are from the Red Sea. That's damn near the land of Punt. You see what I'm saying? Um, if we're dealing with that or whatever case may be, we're talking about the people who colonized Crete and all that stuff like that, the Mycenaeans and everything like that. If they're from the land of Punt, specifically around the area of the region of Medjay, that would account for the warrior culture of your Mycenaeans, your Minoans. I think Clyde Winters talked about that. You know, the linear A, linear B is related to Manding languages and stuff like that. So it's things you run into like that. But in this book, her method, Dr. Liny Srinivasan, her method, from what I'm seeing from this book, and by no means this is a lengthy, heavy book. I can't give any kind of like synopsis of this in a 5-minute video or whatever case. It's like 500 pages or something. But just like a little skim, place names or toponomic elements of names are not obvious as they are hidden by the use of several dialectical forms of place or country names, decoding the place names inside ancient Indian names and their identification by matching with historically known places, all available Near East sources such as cuneiform, hieroglyphic, Ugarit texts, supplemented and supported by biblical and classical Greek literature. So this also works like biblically speaking. Let's say like the land of Canaan. You know what I mean? Okay, if we look at Canaan from a biblical perspective, Canaan would be identified like a person. We're looking at one of Ham's sons, Canaan. Um, that's a person, biblically speaking. But if you look at it from a perspective of a place, Canaan, the word for Canaan in Hebrew would be Labana. Labana means milky white, but Labana as a place would be Lebanon. And Lebanon would be in the land of Canaan. And then if you look at all the sons of Canaan, Sidon, that's a city, that's a place. You see what I'm saying? Amor, that's a mountainous region, that's a place. The only thing that's not a place out of the 11 sons of Canaan is, interestingly enough, is Heth, the terrible. If you look up Heth, Heth is tied to a place by the name of Canessa. That's at the foot of the Caucasus Mountains near Cappadocia, where they have caves in between the Black and the Caspian Sea, and that's associated with the Hittites. Interestingly enough, and all these, and if we're looking at the timing of a lot of this stuff, is set around your 15th dynasty, your Jacob by pharaohs, Yakub, Jacob, you feel what I'm saying? So that's kind of like just throwing that off in there, because I really don't believe that somebody can go somewhere for 50 generations and then come back later. That don't make sense to me, because what language did they speak? The language has to match up, the age of the genetics, all that stuff has to match up in that, and nobody can really give a good explanation for that. But just to get off that, but let's see, the ancient place names are not available in any systematic way. They're not in any order, either chronologically or historically. The ancient place names are hard to recognize, for they're translated dialectically or crudely Sanskritized form. So this is another issue that she kind of uncovers in this. You can tell that Sanskrit is a made-up language. They made it up at some point, and they made it like it's an older language than what it is. It's coming out of Pali and Prakrit and stuff like that. In other terms, it actually has, they were saying, she talks about, I'm going to go into that in a second. She talks about how it has Akkadian in it. It has elements of Egyptian in it. It has a lot of different things in it. It's not some mystical language of God or something like that. They made it up at some point, and they were taking stories from, let's say, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, or something like that, those type of languages, and they were Sanskritizing the stories and the information and the place names and stuff like that. That's why it comes across like that when you get to the Vedas and all that stuff like that. And this is according to the author and stuff like that. She makes a very compelling point. Okay, so Desi means non-Sanskrit words, usually Pali, Prakrit, or words of unknown origin in spoken dialects of North India. So she says a lot of many Desi words have Sanskrit parallels. Words from language A may look or sound totally different after being translated and passed through several different languages and dialects. So basically, yeah, she's saying that in regards to your names of places and people and things that get transferred into Sanskrit. She uses the term pre-Greek Myceanean when she describes the migration of certain people from Nubia, because I'm not sure if the author is aware of the term Pelagian, or when you started getting to the the background of a lot of these people, it's not really any. Greeks started off as black people. I mean, that's just what it is. But let's see, pre-Greek Mycenaean is not a regular term. I would use the term Pelagian, which is a blanket term, but still it's more appropriate than pre-Greek Mycenaean, but whatever. The similarity of some linear B names with the ancient Indian names suggests that the high civilization of Mycenae and Pylos were founded by the royal race of people related to the Hyksos rulers of Egypt. So, yeah, so she goes into that. And again, if we go with the idea that the Hyksos are not foreign rulers, they come from Khasut, because Maasai come out of Xois. They were people that left Xois, and they're dark as can be. So at some point, we're not dealing with for lack of a better way of putting it, Indo-Arabs as we would see them in the modern time. A lot of these people were were not very far removed from Nubians. The new methods prove that early kings in the Rig Veda and Epic Purana were Egyptian monarchs originating from descendants of foreign colonies of Nubia. Let's see. She goes into Baal, not Baal, but Indra, the name Indra. In Sanskrit, In means Lord, and Dra from the root Dru, meaning tree. So the Indra means Lord of the tree. Indra was god of the cedar tree and of the lands of the cedar forest of Syria. So that's how she goes into it. She's taking Indra and taking him out of the context of India and putting him in the context of Syria, Palestine, the Levant, Turkey, all that, and then with that context, she's breaking a lot of ground on a lot of things. According to the ancient Indian literary tradition, the king of a region often bore the same toponymical name and was identified or considered identical with the god of that region. Hence, the region signified by the Rig Veda god Indra was the same land, the ancient Sumerio-Akkadian name of which was Kor Gish Irina, the land of the cedar forest. So she goes into that. This format may explain why stories such as the Baal cycle read how they do. If Baal is the name of a king who worships Baal and who is in a specific location, and that's why there's so many Baals, Baal Hadad, Baal Sapan, it's a lot of different iterations of Baal. But if they're kings that worship Baal and they're from a particular location, then that would make sense. If if the god does something or whatever, or he goes somewhere and interacts with another deity or whatever case may be, it may also account for the way it's worded, the Baal cycle, as if, let's say, a king dies and you get another king. I mean, that's in line with this whole line of thinking. That would definitely make sense. It's talking about how the priests adjust the mythology based on the political relationships with certain kings and countries. This or that deity is divine, while this one is a demon. The demon may have been the political rival of the king whose scribe is writing the epic. So that's another thing. And by no means can I really give a summary of this thing, of this book. It's a large piece of work, real goes in depth into the language, but I just kind of want to just scratch the surface on some of what the author is actually talking about. She says the notion, and this is on page 241, says the notion that ancestral Indians had nothing to do with the ancient Near East is responsible for the lack of Indian prehistory or the prehistory of the Indian subcontinent. Also, there is a general lack of knowledge concerning ancient Near Eastern civilizations. Simply because Indian universities do not have any departments for Near Eastern studies, all of that have delayed the discovery of prehistoric links of India and the Near East. For example, the literature of the Puranas has many similarities with various Near Eastern Gnostic writings, including the Egyptian Coptic. In fact, the ancient Near East background of the Puranas is hidden under mysterious names and bizarre myths. Often such names are crudely Sanskritized Near Eastern names or substitutions by synonymous Sanskrit words. This is proved by the discovery that the mythical islands of the Puranic cosmology are in reality survival of the names of many Near Eastern countries and kingdoms of the mid-2nd millennium BC, or even a period older than that. Sanskrit-looking names for certain kings, royalties of Syria, Palestine, or the Sanskrit names of Hurrian, Myceanean monarchs remain unexplained because of the unknown Near Eastern background context of the epic Purana literature. Although these texts in Sanskrit are composed much later, their stories and subject matter consist of the Near Eastern past of their ancestors. For that, the Puranas are only full of mysterious and unintelligible names, but also their stories are ahistorical. For example, the Near Eastern context helps to recognize that the mythical islands of the Puranas are names of ancient Near Eastern countries and kingdoms, and the interrelationship of certain mythical names with the names of Rig Veda and Arthura Veda reveal that context and background of these two Vedas also go back to the ancient Near East, which is a major reason for their obscurity to us. For example, Pythinas, according in one of the Rig Veda hymns, has been interpreted as the name of a sacrificer, but the same name is listed in the Mahabharata as the name of a king. Nobody can miss the remarkable similarity of the name with Pythanas, the founder of the Hittite kingdom. So she goes on and on in regards to that. Nobody wanted to solve the mystery of unintelligible names and myths of the Puranas, or to understand their interrelation with still older names of the Rig Veda, Atharva Veda. Also, for the Western Indiologists, there is an insurmountable barrier of their insufficient knowledge of spoken and living languages of India, as they learn only Sanskrit. For the Indian linguists, there is the prejudice and phobia of Semitic connection to their sacred scriptures, which could be disastrous to its imaginary Aryan image. Otherwise, it would have been discovered long ago that Aryans, prior to arrival to India, ruled a confederation of Asiatic and Egyptian kingdoms, all along with their Semite and Hurrian political brothers. They, as soldiers, fought many battles, standing side by side with their various Near Eastern comrades. xvii royalties of the Puranas were none other than the descendants of Hyksos, kings of Egypt. It is most likely that after the Hyksos expulsion, circa 1500 BC from Egypt, the Asiatic priests, scribes, who retreated to Syria, replaced the former sacred Egyptian language by their own language, that is, Sanskrit. This could be the reason for the sudden appearance of Sanskrit or Sanskrit-type names and terms in cuneiform for a relatively short period of time, namely the Amarna Age. So she goes into a lot of that. Yeah, and I ain't trying to read whole chapters out of book, but at the end of the day, I just wanted to kind of, just sprinkle a little bit of that in there. But yeah, and as you get into a lot of this, it also, like I said, it touches on the whole Greek thing, because we have to remember that classical Greeks that's like what, 500 BC. So the classical Greeks are writing about people who lived about 1,000 years before them, which were the Minoans and the Myceaneans. When we watch the movie Troy and all that, that's Agamemnon, that's Achilles, that's all your heroes, Ajax and all those people like that. Those are not your classical Greeks. Those are more akin to probably like Phoenicians or Nubians. And if Phoenicians come from the Red Sea, according to Herodotus, then they're probably ethnically very similar to Nubians. So that's kind of, I just kind of wanted to touch on that. Maybe some of my people who, read Medu Neter are more familiar with, Egyptian history than myself. You feel me? They might be able to shed some light on that. I know the Medjay dealt with the owl. It's no coincidence that your Greeks dealt with Athena. Athena is the same thing as Neith. You know what I mean? Phoenicians worship Neith, Athena, Anat. So I mean, it's numerous parallels that we can draw. But I just kind of wanted to make this video because nobody else that I've really seen is really talking about that. But this lady goes in on it in this book. So thanks for listening. Peace.